Texas A&M has a handful of players who need to have a good showing in the spring game, and we'll talk about those names today on Locked On Aggies.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. On the show today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk a little bit about Ryan Prager. I have some thoughts on him. Not his best last handful of outings. And I mean, he's our guy. We need to get him going, especially with his big time series coming up this weekend against the Hogs. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about what I want to see out of each position group in the spring game. But I want to get things started talking about, I've got 4 players, really 3 in an honorable mention, and the honorable mention is kind of a given, but 3 players that I want to see have a good showing in the spring game. And the number 1 player on that list is Reuben Owens. I think that last year, the 1-2 punch of Amari Daniels and, of course, headlined by Le'Veon Moss there was pretty solid. But I think it's got a chance to be a better 1-2 punch with Le'Veon Moss once he's back to being 100% himself and Reuben Owens. Reuben Owens, of course, heading into last season, everyone anticipated him having a big year. We all thought that he was going to take that massive 5-star freshman to 5-star sophomore leap. We saw it coming for Owens, and I think that the injury really hurt the chance of that happening. You know, I mean, this time last year, there was a lot of positivity surrounding Reuben Owens. And I mean, people thought that he was going to have an exceptional season, myself included. And then, of course, the injury occurs and he misses pretty much the whole season. Of course, he plays a handful of games last year. But I mean, nothing really of importance besides the bowl game. I mean, he kind of looked like himself back in the bowl game a little bit, but we want to see the Reuben Owens that we know can be incredibly special. And I know that that player is out there. So, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in this spring game. I think that we need to see him have the type of performance where do you say to yourself, okay, he's going to be really good behind Le'Veon Moss this year. And I think that we all still believe that that can happen, but we need to see some more proof. So, you know, Reuben Owens has the potential to be one of the better running backs in the SEC. I think that a lot of folks are too fired up about the fact that he was a 5-star. I think we do this with 5-stars all the time. But I mean, Le'Veon Moss, first of all, was not a low-ranked prospect. Let's remember that. But I mean, he has been so good. I think that once he is 100% back on the field and healthy, there's no way that there's 3 running backs in the SEC better than him. I think he's the top 3 running back in this conference. I talked about how there was that list that came out that didn't have Le'Veon Moss in the top 10, and I thought it was asinine, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. So Reuben Owens is a player I want to see come out and shine, because if this 1-2 punch between him and Moss can just be dominant, we know how good this offensive line is going to be. We'll talk about the offensive line here in a minute, but we know how good this offensive line unit is going to be. If this offensive line unit ends up being as good as we anticipate it being, and then on top of that, you have a tandem of running backs between Moss and Owens that are this good, it's going to be scary. So I'd love to see him look really good in this ball game. The next name I have is one that I think everyone wants to see, and it's Casey Concepcion. Now, I did see a tweet that Casey Concepcion, it looked like he had a little tweak of something in practice. I don't know. I'm assuming he'll be out there on Saturday. I haven't heard anything otherwise, but I mean, it didn't look like anything serious. I just thought I'd bring it up in case he gets announced not playing a day or two, but I think he'll be fine to be out there. But I mean, ESPN just listed the top 10 wide receivers in college football. And of course, Casey Concepcion was one of the names on that list. And who does that surprise? Shouldn't surprise anybody. We know that Casey Concepcion is a special player who is going to have a special season. He has it in him. And I know that I realistically think that he is going to have I think he's got a shot in the 1,000-yard season. I really do. I don't think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world to do because we've talked about you've got a lot of solid wide receivers on the roster, and on top of that, you've got a quarterback in Marcel Reed that still has to prove himself as a passer. So, but I think he's capable of doing it. And I'm just telling you, the reason I want to see Casey Concepcion play well is to just build more offseason hype around this football team. We all know how good he is. There's nothing that he can do on Saturday that we're going to go, oh my gosh, this guy's a star. We already know that. We already know how good of a player he is. I think what we really want to see is him kind of prove how good that, I think that I want him to prove why we should be so hyped about him. That's what I want to see KC Concepcion improve in this game. And then the next name I have on this list is none other than DJ Hicks. And I mean, this is one, if you've been listening to Locked On Aggies for a while, you know that I am big time in on DJ Hicks. And I think that he is going to finally take that jump that we've been wanting to see for years out of him. So, if he does take that jump, I think that this season is going to be the year that he does it. And I think that, he's really transforming his body. And it sounds like he's trying to gain some good weight to do that properly. And I think that he's going to be a better player next year than he was last year. And I think that he's just got a lot to prove. I believe that DJ Hicks, if you asked him, I think he would tell you, I haven't had the college career to this point that I would have liked. You know what I mean? I think that he would tell you that. I think he would say, yeah, I haven't had the college career that I was hoping for, I was anticipating to this point in my life. I really do believe he would tell you that. So if you were to ask him that and he were to tell you that, I think he would tell you that this year things are going to be different. I think he's going to have a special season. I think he's going to be able to he's going to stop the run well. I think he'll get 4 or 5 sacks. I think he's got a legit shot at that. And I think he's going to turn himself into a legit NFL prospect with his play this season. And to just piggyback off the Concepcion thing, we know that Hicks is a good player, but if he could come out and just make some noise in this game, I think it would be another reason to give more fans more reasons to be fired up in the offseason. That is why I think it's important for DJ Hicks to play well in this game. And then the last name, we talked about this yesterday, so I just wanted to continue to reiterate this, is Marcel Reed. We want to see him come out on Saturday and sling the football. I want him to come out and let it fly. I want him to continue to prove how talented he is of a quarterback. We know who he is we already know who he is as a runner, but we want to see him continue to develop as a passer. And this is the year he's going to have to do it. So once again, and he's got the better receivers, and you're not going to see his legs on display in a spring game like this. So if he could come out and sling the football and look good and hit some receivers, I think it would build a lot of confidence for the future at the quarterback position. So that's my thoughts on that. So those are the players I want to see play well. This, once again, we're going to be talking about the spring game all week long. We'll talk about the baseball series as well. There's a lot to talk about, but it'll be a lot of this conversation. So I really want to see those guys play well, but this will be a conversation we continue to have. Now, I've got 4 positions written down here, and I have 4 questions about each of those positions. They're not going to get fully answered in this spring game, but I think that we could get an idea. And I'll talk about what those 4 questions are coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to talk about our friends over at Game Time. Those of you everydayers here at Locked On Aggies know that I absolutely love the Game Time app. I use Game Time to get tickets to everything I ever go to. I'm going to a baseball game tomorrow with my dad, and we got tickets on Game Time. Dad and I went to go see Shane Gillis. Got those on Game Time. Taking my mom to go see a concert. Got those tickets on Game Time. Every single ticket that I purchase, I get it on Game Time. What I love about it is if it's a ticket where there's like seats to a venue, like I got a ticket to Keelan the other day on Game Time, but obviously it's just like an admission thing. But if it's a venue that has seats and you're looking at something, a stage, a field, an arena, a court, whatever, you can get a good look at what your seats look like on the Game Time app, so you know exactly what you're looking for. And I really like that feature of the Game Time app. I think it is the perfect app to use for all of these ticket inquiries you might have. So I love the Game Time app. I think it's so easy to use. I think it's the best prices. I love it. And I promise that you will as well. Head on over to Game Time right now and buy tickets. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLEGE, $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So I want to talk a little bit about some position groups that I am going to be monitoring when it comes to this spring game. And the number one position, and I bet right now if I told you all to pause and comment what I'm about to say, everyone would know, and you would say the secondary. And once again, we're not going to get a ton of answers from this spring football game. We're not going to get a ton of answers. But what we might get is we might learn a little bit about some players that have stepped up. We've heard a lot of good things about Shaw from Washington. I think that he could prove a lot. I think that this is an opportunity for the secondary to prove that they've got some depth pieces that make you feel better. I mean, this portal's back open, and there's going to be some players hitting it after spring games and all that. And now we know this portal window isn't obviously as substantial as the other portal window, but this is an opportunity for the coaching staff to go and add a player or two if they feel that they need some more. So if they feel that they need that, they will be able to go and get a player in the portal. So it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening with the portal at the secondary position. But I mean, I think that secondary is the number one position you might need to go get another player. And I do think that the coaching staff is going to look at this game a little bit and say to themselves, hey, listen, like, what do we want to see in this game? Do we need more guys? They want to see improvement. They've obviously watched practice. They know what they've got and all that, but I think they'd like to see some display on the field to get a real feel for this year. So that is going to be interesting. The next name that I have here or the next position I have is the offensive line. I think that the offensive line is going to be I do believe that the Texas A&M offensive line is going to be one of the most underrated. I mean, I think that's definitely safe to say. I think that it's going to be the most underrated position groups in all of college football. I think that the Texas A&M offensive line is going to be really, 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 really good this year. And knowing that you have a quarterback who likes to run the ball and a running back and a backfield full of running backs who are really good, you want to see that. So, and I mean, it's how we talk about there's going to be your captains. You're going to have multiple offensive linemen. I think that this offensive line is going to be one of the best offensive lines we've seen at Texas A&M in a while, and that is very exciting to see. So I want to continue to see this offensive line get better and better and better and better. And I think that it is definitely capable of doing that. But I just want to see him get a push. You know what I mean? And it's always funny. Whatever happens, there's no winning in a spring game. I say this every year. I said this last year, said the year before. There's no winning in a spring game. All that can happen, if your offensive line gets a push, we're going to go, man, that defensive line got pushed around. If the offensive line doesn't get a push, we're going to go, man, this offensive line's not as good as we thought it was. But, I mean, at the end of the day, this is going to happen. Every game of offensive line's going to win a rep. The D-line's going to win a rep. It's going to happen. So you want to see balance. I'd like to see both units win some reps. The next group I've got listed down here is the tight ends. We've talked a lot about Amari Nyblack and Coyote Armstrong and all of these other tight ends. And I think that this is our opportunity to see them prove it on the field. I think that the tight ends have gotten a lot better. I've discussed this a lot. I think that our tight end room is in one of the best positions it's been in a while. I really wanted to see Donovan Green, have more of a relevant role than he did. And obviously he didn't, and that stunk and all that. But since then, I think that this is the best offensive line group that we've had in a while. And I'm excited to see what it's going to end up being capable of. I mean, we've talked about it. Colin Klein wants to have his tight end room be incredibly involved in his offenses. And I think this year he's got the unit necessary for that to be a reality. So hopefully we see the tight ends be better and better and better and better and better for the Aggies this year. But I think this has been one of the best offensive line, tight end seasons we see at Texas A&M in a while because of how good the players are on top of how much Coach Klein wants to get the unit involved. The last thing I've got is D-line depth. We know that at the top end of things here, our defensive line is going to be pretty good. The concern I have, and I've voiced this many, many times, the concern that I have is with the depth. We know that you've got great players at the top end of it, but are you deep enough? And I think that we're going to see that because once again, in these types of games, you see players start to you see, people rotate in, and we'll see some freshmen. We'll see some of these guys we didn't see a ton last year. You'll get a feel for all of these different players. So defensive line depth is something that I, without question, am going to be keeping an eye out on. I think that this defensive line is going to be good. And once again, I've talked about this with a lot of folks. I was on the radio and talked about this the other day. And so, I talked about how the Texas A&M defensive line, it can't not be good. It's not possible. It's just there's too much proven history of success at that position group. And look at all the guys in the NFL. It's just Texas A&M is always going to have a good defensive line. Now, there's a difference in having a good defensive line and having a good unit. You need to have to be good top to bottom. So, want to see Texas A&M's defensive line prove that there's multiple players within this group that can be really good. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Those are the positions I have there. I want to talk a little bit about Prager and the way he's been pitching lately and why I want to break this down. And we'll talk about that coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to talk about our friends over at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all my money go? Between dinging out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. So Ryan Prager, who of course, kind of was the ace for this team last year, and he of course is meant to be the ace this year. he started the season off hot. I mean, in his first 4 outings or 5 outings, what was it? Let's see. Yeah. In his first 4 outings, which added up to all, well over 23, 24 innings, he only gave up 1 earned run. Since then, he's given up 4, 4, 6, 3, 5 when it comes to earned runs. And it's just, not been as good. He's not been as good as I would have liked. What makes Prager good is having his off speed mixed with locating his fastball. And I think that he's had a bit, because he's not an overpowering guy from the left side. He's not a guy that's coming out there throwing 102. He's not an overpowering pitcher. He beats you by pitching, not throwing. I'm big into this because Ryan Prager pitches similar to how I pitched back in the day. But, because he's a pitcher, he's hitting spots, he's executing pitches, putting them where they need to be. But he hasn't been tip-top shape of late. And we really need to see him continue to get better and better and better when it comes to down the stretch of the season. So, on the year, Prager's ERA is sitting here at 3.93. It's not terrible. I mean, I would have hoped, what was he last year? What was his ERA last year? Can I see that? It was definitely significantly less than that, right? We have to all agree on that. 2.95. He had a 2.95 last year. And like I said, so he's up about a point on his ERA right now. And I think we need to see him have a better finish to the year. We've struggled in our Friday games at times this year, obviously aside from the sweep and SEC play. So what are we in? Well, I keep saying Friday games. When I say Friday games, I'm talking about the first game of the series. I'm so used to that being on Friday. So in SEC play, I want to get the exact number we are in Friday games. Why is my computer being weird? All right. In Friday games, we are 0-1, 0-2. We won the Friday game against Kentucky. So 1-2, 1-3. So we're 2-3 in those games. And, when you have your ace going, and once again, when I'm saying Friday games, I mean the first game of the series. You want it to be a good baseball team. You really want those first game of the series to be well, because that means your ace is great. So Prager's got to be a bit better. And once again, I think it's hitting his spots and controlling that off speed. If he does that, he's going to be just fine. I'm not too worried about him. But once again, we need to see Ryan Prager be just a bit better. I think that if we start winning, winning game 1 makes it a lot easier to win a series. When you just got to go 1-2, it's really easy to win a series. So if Prager can start giving you better starts, and I think he's capable of doing it, we've seen him. We know who he is as a pitcher. I want to see him be a little bit more dialed in, a little bit more Ryan Prager-esque, because we know that he has that in him. We know that's who he's been for years and years and years. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. I really, really do appreciate it. Hope everyone has an outstanding rest of their Tuesday, and we'll see you tomorrow right here on Locked On Aggies.